I think it's directly tied to the lives that we're all living right now, especially when you're scrolling through your phone. Have you ever noticed you'll get ones that are like, oh, look, it's puppies. And then you see something else and you get that, that little hit, that little sensation. That's a little cortisol jump, right? That's a little stressor. It's not good. Hello, and welcome back to the How to Take Care of Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Veronica Wolff-Casey, and I am so glad that you're here. Today's episode might just unlock something big for you, especially if you've been feeling like, I'm doing everything right and it's still not working. This is the episode if you've been feeling stuck. This is the episode if you've been feeling like, oh God, I am actually really confused by what my body is doing. Because today we're talking about stress, specifically how cortisol, your primary stress hormone, might be keeping you stuck in a cycle of insulin resistance, stubborn weight, and exhaustion. And we'll explore it through a modern science-backed lens and the deeper wisdom of Ayurveda. So let's drop in. Why stress isn't just a mood, it's metabolic. Let's start with something most of us don't realize. Your stress response literally changes how your body metabolizes food. And this is an evolutionary thing, okay? It happened because of how our bodies needed to react to certain external stressors. And back when we lived in the jungle, that didn't make that big of a difference. It was really useful. But now that we're living mostly in houses and safe spaces, it causes big problems. So when your brain perceives stress, whether it's a tight deadline, an argument, trauma from the past, or just doom scrolling before bed, it signals your adrenal glands to release cortisol. And one of cortisol's main jobs is to raise your blood sugar. It tells your liver, hey, there may be danger. We need fuel now. So your liver dumps glucose into the bloodstream, which was great. Like I said before, if you're running from a tiger or a bear, it's not so great if you're just trying to finish a spreadsheet or parent your kids or scroll your way through a meltdown at midnight or deal with whatever else. It could be that you got a parking ticket. It could be that you're on a deadline and you're not going to make it. It could be any number of things. It could even be, for some people, just checking your mail. The anticipation of the potential bills that are in there can spike cortisol, but you don't need your liver to dump glucose into your bloodstream in those instances. You don't need extra fuel to go run or do something really hard physically. Here's the kicker. If your blood sugar stays high, your insulin has to keep working overtime to bring it back down. And over time, your cells stop listening. That's insulin resistance, and it's directly tied to chronic stress. I think it's directly tied to the lives that we're all living right now, especially when you're scrolling through your phone. Have you ever noticed you'll get ones that are like, oh, look, it's puppies. And then you see something else and you get that, that little hit, that little sensation. That's a little cortisol jump, right? That's a little stressor. It's not good. Let's dive into the science for a second. So in 2011, the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that elevated cortisol levels in teens predicted worse insulin sensitivity over time. And then another study showed that chronic psychological stress in women led to higher insulin response and burned 100 fewer calories after meals. 100 fewer calories because they were psychologically stressed. That's the equivalent of 11 pounds a year gained just from stress. Oh, I know. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're overstressed and under-resourced. And it's okay. We have solutions. Let's look at some real-life signs that stress is driving your metabolic dysfunction. Let's bring it down to earth. What this might look like in your body, in your life, when cortisol is hijacking your healing, is that you're tired but wired at night. So your body feels wired, your mind won't quit, but you're exhausted. This often happens to me if I've had a really busy day. It always happened in the past. It actually was something I stressed about and had a real challenge with for a really long time, is that I would be doing so much during the day, go, 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 go. I'd get to bed, I'd be exhausted. I'd be falling asleep on the couch. And then I'd get to bed and I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I was just awake. That's that wired but tired. Another way that you can tell that cortisol is hijacking your healing is that you wake up between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. I know, because the cortisol jumps up. And if your cortisol is dysregulated, it will push you awake at that time. In Ayurveda, we call it the Vata time of night. And it just means the same thing. There's too much going on. Cortisol is dysregulating your body. The other one is that you crash hard mid-afternoon, regardless of what you've eaten, regardless of what's going on, right? You could have eaten a very satisfying meal, although we don't tend to see this in our low-carb, high-fat, moderate protein people. We tend to see it in people that are eating more of a standard American diet, but the cortisol dysregulation is there. And if you're crashing hard mid-afternoon, it's 3 p.m. and you're like, where's my espresso? That's a big sign that you've got cortisol really hijacking what's going on in your body. Another one is that you're craving sugar like your life depends on it. That sugar addiction is through the roof. And sugar and cortisol have a terrible relationship, right? If you're eating a ton of sugar, your cortisol most likely is going through the roof as well. A big one, and one that's really easy to see and so frustrating, is that you gain weight, especially around your belly, even though you're eating quote unquote clean food. So if you're dealing with that belly weight, and I've often heard it called the cortisol belly. I'm touching my belly now. Mine's starting to go away. It takes time, but it's going away. And it can for you too. We have to get that cortisol under control, but we can absolutely do that. And then if you're checking your blood sugar numbers, and this is more for people who are diabetic or pre-diabetic and who are actually looking at such things, your blood sugar numbers end up very unpredictable, especially after a stressful day. And I can totally align with this. It's what happened to me in the beginning of my low carb, high fat, moderate protein journey, this metabolic reset journey. I was checking my blood sugar and my ketones on a monitor, and I was eating barely any carbs at all, and my blood sugar would be through the roof, and I couldn't understand what was going on. Of course, I was at the beginning of my journey. I didn't have someone to explain it to me, but I did a bunch of research, and it turns out that my cortisol was driving my blood glucose because my body would be stressed. And then I'd think, oh, I need that fuel. So my liver would produce all this glucose. And next thing I know, my blood sugar is up, my ketones are down, and I'm not actually getting what I need. And the cortisol is just so out of control. And it really is frustrating. So if you're frustrated, you're not alone. You're not alone. We can do this together. The last one is that if you feel like no matter what you do, you're stuck. Nothing budges. You just feel like no matter how hard you like on the hamster wheel, you're going, and nothing is changing. And if you've ever said to yourself, I'm doing everything right, why isn't this working? This might be the reason why. It's the cortisol. It's the cortisol. I alluded to some things that Ayurveda said before, but let's get a little clearer on that. So when cortisol is dysregulated, it means that Vata and Pitta doshas are out of balance. Because long before we had cortisol tests and continuous glucose monitors, Ayurveda understood this cortisol dysregulation. So chronic stress aggravates Vata and Pitta. Okay. Vata is the dosha that is made up of air and ether. Pitta is the dosha that's made up of fire and a little bit of water. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, you can go back to one of the earlier episodes and watch the Ayurvedic 101 episode. And that will give you a little clarity. I will link to it in the show notes below. So Vata brings anxiety, restlessness, and overthinking. Sound familiar? Pitta brings pressure, perfectionism, and overdrive that usually leads to burnout. All of these things together spell burn out. Ever been burnt out? Happened to me. Like, ask me. Oh, it's not good, right? Because you dry out ojas, which is your vital reserve. Ojas is your kind of like your internal unctuousness. It's that bit of resilience that helps you to keep going. And when you've got too much of Vata, too much of Pitta, too much of cortisol, that ojas gets depleted really quickly. And then you don't have any get up and go. You no longer have that ability to do the things that need to get done. When ojas is depleted, you yell at the dog for being a dog. You yell at the cat for being a cat. You're just mad at everything, super frustrated because you don't have that resilience left. You've scraped the bottom of the barrel. And then the other thing that Vata and Pitta disturbance creates is a lack of agni. They disrupt your digestive fire, which means that sometimes you're really, really hungry. Sometimes you're not hungry at all. And then what happens is instead of building strong, resilient tissue from your food, you get weak digestion, poor assimilation, toxic accumulation, ama. We've talked about ama before. Ama is the mama of disease, and tissue depletion. Because if you don't have the digestive fire to appropriately digest your food, then your food can't go on to become the tissues that make up your body. And we see this all the time. People who have these kind of dysregulations over time, they begin to be very depleted and things start to break down. Ayurveda teaches that healing your metabolism is not just about what you eat. It's also about how you live, how regulated your system is, how safe your body feels. Healing begins with nervous system safety. We have to feel comfortable in our own skins in order to heal. So we really have to be clear on what we can do to take care of that. And we're going to get into that soon. What does cortisol do to your body? This is really important, right? So we need to all figure this out and be on the same page here. So let's get nerdy for a moment. And you know me at all. You know I'm a total nerd. So now you're going to get nerdy with me, okay? So what does cortisol do at the cellular level? Cortisol decreases insulin sensitivity, especially in muscle and fat tissue. So your cells become less responsive to insulin. This is that insulin resistance. I know sometimes that insulin resistance term can be a little confusing, but what it means is this, is that you have a decreasing amount of sensitivity to insulin's message, especially in muscle and fat tissue. Okay. Next is that it increases hepatic glucose output. And that's just a fancy way of saying that your liver releases more sugar, more glucose into your bloodstream. And then it blunts insulin production. So now your pancreas is having a hard time responding to those signals. And then you've probably experienced this firsthand, is that it messes with your sleep. Cortisol wrecks your sleep, which then further impairs glucose metabolism. And then lastly, although it does a lot more, but just for the purposes of our conversation today, it alters your appetites and cravings, often towards high carb, high sugar foods. Things that you're like, oh, I could really go for a cake. I could really go for a brownie, because your body's looking for that. And then it alters your appetite. So sometimes you're actually not hungry at all. Other times you're ravenous. And all of this creates a vicious cycle. So stress bumps cortisol, which leads to high blood sugar, which leads to high insulin, which leads to insulin resistance, which leads to more fat storage, which leads to more inflammation, which leads to more stress. Oh, everybody take a deep breath right now. I know it's a lot. Exhale. Here's the thing. You can't out willpower this. You have to regulate your nervous system. So that's great, Veronica. But what actually helps? first, and we just did it, is to regulate your breath. Do it again. Take another inhale. Full exhale. It's the fastest way to calm your nervous system. Indeed, an even better way. And we actually did a few breath works a few episodes ago that you might find helpful. But one that's really easy and it's super fast is the inhale for 4 and then exhale for 6. And you just do that for 3 to 5 minutes. You can set a timer on your phone. Let's try it now. And don't close your eyes if you're driving, okay? But if you want to, you can close your eyes. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Come back to normal breathing. You just did one round. Super easy, right? You could totally do this. Set a timer for 5 minutes, do it for 5 minutes, count in your head. These long exhales stimulate your vagus nerve, lower cortisol, and support insulin sensitivity. And it's free. Don't you love it? It's free. I love a free breath work. Next is morning light. Gentle movement. It's so important to get outside as early as you can. First thing, even if it's cloudy, even if it's rainy, get out first thing in natural light, no sunglasses. Be as naked as you can be legally in your area. I'm always jealous of people who live in the country and have no neighbors and that can just go outside fully naked. I wish that were the case, but I think I would make the headlines of the Richmond Times here, or I get arrested or something. We don't love that for me. So get outside as early as possible. Walk, stretch, move around. I like to look around at all the plants in my garden. I like to smell the roses when it's the time for them. I like to just listen to the birds. This will help to reset your circadian rhythm, which balances cortisol, and then it sets the tone for metabolic stability all day long, which is such a bonus. And it's so easy. And again, it's free. I love free stuff. But you just get outside, even if it's cloudy, and no, being in a window doesn't work. If it's pouring rain, a window's better than nothing. But if it's not raining, go outside as naked as you're comfortable being, and that is legal in the area you're in, and try to just soak up 5 to 10 minutes of sunlight, 5 to 10 minutes of natural light if it's cloudy. I like to also drink my water. So I hydrate outside. So I'll take my water bottle. I drink of this heat. Where is it? It's here. I drink, what is this? 24 ounces of water in the morning. And I do it while I'm outside. I do it as part of my morning routine as I walk around before I work out. And then protect your sleep. That's tip number 3. So we had regulate your breath, morning light and gentle movement, and now protect your sleep. Sleep deprivation raises cortisol and increases insulin resistance by up to 40%. Make sleep sacred. Dark room. No screens for at least an hour before bed, and certainly not in bed. Do not be on your phone in bed. If you have your phone to listen to something soothing before you sleep, that's one thing. But if you can't be trusted, I can't be trusted. You might need to put your phone in another room. But Veronica, use it to wake up. Yeah. Get a different alarm clock, okay? Because I can't be trusted to have the phone in bed. I then start like asking questions on Google, looking things up, and next thing I know, it's 10 o'clock and I'm not asleep. And not only that, then I don't sleep so well that night. There's something about having the phone on that whole time that causes you to not sleep well at all. Then maybe you need to add magnesium to your evening supplement stack. Maybe you need to take a hot bath before bed. But lean into the Ayurvedic rhythm. You need to have the same bedtime and wake up time every single day. Your body does best when it has a reliable container. So give it a reliable container around sleep. Same bedtime, same wake up as best you can every single day. Tip number 4, have a daily grounding ritual, even if it's only 10 minutes. That might be breath work, like we talked about earlier. I love journaling. I think taking 10 minutes to journal, get everything out of your head, so useful. Do something with your feet on the earth, literally grounding. Go outside. Maybe that's part of your morning routine. Not only do you go outside to get morning light, but you do it barefoot so that you can literally feel the earth beneath your feet. You need to signal to your system, you're safe now. As a matter of fact, in that vein, put your hands on your heart, breathe softly, say to yourself, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. Oh, let's do it again. I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. I feel better already. Tip number 5, metabolically supportive food. This is super important. Do not fast through a cortisol spike. Eat protein and fat as your first meal of the day. No carbohydrates in that first meal of the day if you can get away with it, or very few. And if they're there, they should be with the protein and the fat. And then no naked carbs. What does that mean? Well, no just sugar things, like no cookies, no cakes, no candy, no sugar, right? If you're going to have carbohydrates, make sure they're in something else. Make sure that there's protein and fat there with them, or fiber, although that's a whole nother story we'll get into in another episode. And then don't undereat. It tells your body you're in danger. So if you are eating the metabolic reset way, if you're eating high fat, moderate protein, low carb, then you don't want to undereat. It can be really tempting, especially when you're in the beginning of this journey, to be like, well, I'm doing this to lose weight. I don't want to overeat. But if you're prioritizing fat and protein and minimizing carbohydrates, if you undereat, your body's going to think you're in starvation mode. That's going to raise your cortisol. That's going to make your body think that it's in danger. Okay. All right. Tip number 6, co-regulation and joy. Yes. Laughter, hugs, intimacy, real conversations. They all tell your body, I'm safe, I'm not alone. I forget the study now. It's not in my head, but the study just came out. I think you probably saw it on Facebook or wherever you consume social media, that there was a study that came out that found that people that had a 10-minute conversation with someone, a friend, a loved one, a relative, found that their mood increased exponentially after that 10-minute conversation. So it doesn't take a lot. And it could even be, we want real conversation, we want real joy, but it could even be that you just send a text message to someone. I love this. I try to do this every day. I pick one person and I send them a text message and I say, hey, I'm just thinking of you. And they usually send one back going, hi, it's so nice to hear from you. And just that little bit of connection, that causes joy. And that joy helps to tell my body that I am safe, I'm not alone, I'm okay, I'm loved, right? That's all it takes. That's all it takes. And then lastly, we want to lean into Ayurvedic self-care. So tip number 7 is Ayurvedic self-care. And that can look like a whole bunch of different things. If you have the digestion for it, I can't crow about Abhyanga enough. Abhyanga warm oil massage, warm oil self-massage before a shower, absolutely is a game changer for nervous system regulation and cortisol reduction. It calms Vata dosha. And so all it is that you get, in the summer, I use coconut oil. In the winter, I use sunflower oil. Sometimes I put a little dash of an essential oil blend in it to make it smell good. I always make sure the oil is warm, and then I slather oil on as much of my body as I can, and then I take a warm shower with good soap. The caveat here is that you cannot do this if you're not digesting well. So if you think you have AMA, I want you to get rid of the AMA. And if you need to reach out to me to figure out how to do that, do it. But there is another episode where we talk about AMA. You need to get rid of the AMA before you do oil, because oil and AMA have similar qualities. And if you use them when your digestion isn't so great, you will get sicker, and that's no fun for anyone. So make sure your digestion's good if you're going to do Abhyanga. If you're worried about it, if you're like, oh, I don't know about my digestion, then you can just do an oil massage on the feet before bed. And then you're just using like a little bit of oil on your feet and really massage your feet, really get in there. If you feel like you need to wipe it off before you go to sleep so you don't ruin your sheets, you can absolutely do that. But you can also leave it on because it's just a little bit of oil and it's on your feet. All right. Another one I really like, Ayurvedically speaking, is Tulsi tea. It's incredibly good for the nervous system and it helps to bring some peace to the system. Well, really, any tea can do that as long as it's not caffeinated. But Tulsi tea has a particular affinity for the nervous system. Some people do chamomile, although I found some people that don't react well to chamomile. I also, if in the summer, I just like a good mint tea. I find that that can be really soothing. But Tulsi tea is an adaptogenic herb and can be really useful for regulating the cortisol in the body. And speaking of adaptogens, ashwagandha, rhodiola, there are other herbs out there that have been shown to reduce cortisol and improve metabolic markers. Just make sure they're the right herbs for you. And if you're not sure, then you can always reach out or do some research and make sure that you're not going to have an ill effect. You can always do trial and error. I just find some people on ashwagandha, it's too heavy, it doesn't feel good. Others find it to be too energizing and then they can't sleep because an adaptogenic herb works with your body to give you energy when you need it and help you to relax when you need to relax. Whew, that's a lot of information. And so I just want to remind yourself that you're not broken, you're protecting yourself. So let me say this as clearly as I can. If you're inflamed, exhausted, or feel like your body is working against you, you are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not doing it wrong. You're surviving, and your body is protecting you. It's been running an emergency program for a long time, perhaps, and now you're ready to shift into healing. And healing doesn't require punishment. It doesn't require you to shame and blame yourself. It requires safety, regulation, and nourishment on every level. Every level. Every part of you deserves to feel good. Every part of you deserves that nourishment, safety, and regulation. You have the tools, okay? I'm here for you if you need me. And if this episode landed for you, please share it. Please share it. Share it with your friend who's been spinning in frustration or spiraling out of control. Share it with your client who's plateaued. Share it with yourself on repeat. Make sure you like the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Please help me out here. The more subscribers I get, the more the algorithm says, oh, she's doing something good. And then the more I grow, the more people I can help. The bigger I get, the more experts I can have come on and talk to us about these different issues. Really, I'm trying to do this for you. So help me help you. Now, if you are ready to go deeper into nervous system repair, metabolic healing, and the real roots of vitality, you know where to find me. Check the show notes below in order to get in contact with me and book an appointment. The Metabolic Reset Community, so excited for this, and I'm going to talk more about it next episode, but the Metabolic Reset Community opens July 25th, and it's going to be a vibrant, enthusiastic community filled with huge opportunities to learn, to heal, and to be with each other in the process. I'm really looking forward to it. Until next time, thank you for being here from the bottom of my heart. And if no one's told you yet today, I love you. And I am convinced of your capacity to continue crafting a life worth living. I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, take good care of yourself. Bye.